What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Happy Hour podcast. I am your host, Ola, and today is a very special episode. On today's episode of the Real Happy Hour podcast, I've got a guest host coming in to interview a special guest. And the two people obviously on the show are special, but one of my friends, his name is Nzube. He's an actor, model, IT specialist, and a producer and content producer and journalist. He's a lot of things, and he has gracefully accepted my invitation to be a guest host where he's going to be speaking to a celebrity, an actor, and I'm going to wait for him to come on the show to show you the surprise, and I'm sure you're going to really enjoy this episode. This has been really fun and it's been exciting, and I can't wait for you all to enjoy it. Please like and subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're streaming this from every platform that it's available on, please like, follow, and leave us a review, because it's really important to know how you feel. After you've seen this episode, can you please leave a message on my social media, the Real Happy Hour podcast on Instagram or TikTok with the there's going to be a clue with the message Bridgerton.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Happy Hour. And no, I'm not Ola. I'm your guest host, Nzube Ufodike. And in the studios with us live is my friend, Cyril Nri.
Cyril Nri, that's me.
Indeed. And we're in for a rapid fire conversation. There's a lot to dig into. It's all about Bridgerton. It's all about Cyril. We know Lord Danbury from the Charlotte Bridgerton series, but before we go into that, just as a bit of background, you obviously an actor and director, Cyril, and you've done quite a lot of work. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about some of the stuff that you would like to let our audience know that you've done?
Okay, let me see now.
There is a lot to go.
I always hate this question when you're in auditions and they say, well, what have you been doing lately? And I go, you've got the sheet in front of you there. Just read it. I have been going, since Adam was a boy. I started working in 1979 as an actor. Or I went to drama school in 1979 and I left in 82. And I started with the Royal Shakespeare Company. And the Royal Shakespeare Company was, they were small parts at that point, but I was very lucky to get in. At that point, they only took, I suppose they would take one black actor a year, one male, one female. So that year, I was lucky. I got in. And that was a year before finishing drama school. From there on, having done quite a bit of Shakespeare, I left and went to the Manchester Royal Exchange, where I did some more Shakespeare and lots of new plays and a musical, Class K, and then onto the Royal Court. And it's sort of carried on. For about the first 13 years, I mainly did theatre.
I see.
Between the National Theatre.
Classically trained.
Yeah, a bit classically trained.
That makes sense.
And so it was mainly theatre,
Yeah.
but not really out of choice. You just sort of fell into a groove, really, and you did that. So that was what I did that for 13 years old, and then I wanted to do more TV and stuff, and it was never coming my way, and essentially I had to leave the agent I was with. And join a new agency and stop working in theatre for a while because people get used to what you do. They cast you in certain roles. I mean, I was playing lots of different roles, but it was all theatre.
All theatre,
And mainly for the same directors, repeated, you know.
Yeah.
And then...
I remember seeing you a couple of, like, Royal Shakespeare. Hamlet.
You're talking later. You're talking later in life. That was way later. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
No, I mean this was real spear carrying stuff that I was doing way back then, and I did that for a while, and then I left that agency and joined another agency where a friend of mine was, Paul McGann, at the time, and I didn't work. I remember she said to me, "You can't do any theatre, darling. You just have to trust me." And within 2 months, I got my first TV part, and it sort of went on from there, really. And now I do. I mean, people will have, I suppose, theatre-wise, things like the Barbershop Chronicles.
I saw that. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Inua Ellams.
Inua Ellams.
Okay, yeah.
Inua Ellams, wonderful. Treatise on blackmail, and them getting their hair cut and dealing with all their problems in life at the barbers all over the world. And so that was a great show. Then you had things like Julius Caesar, the all-black Julius Caesar at the RSC. You had Hamlet, which I played Polonius. Yeah. And then on TV, I suppose the first really, really big breaks came, I did Family Affairs, which was a Channel 5 soap, and I did EastEnders, and various things like that.
You did This Life?
I did This Life,
that
which was yeah. It only became a cult classic later. It was ahead of its time. It was dealing with the minutiae of office politics set in the law.
Indeed, such, and being a 20-something in London.
Yeah, it was the sexual politics of the office.
Well, there was that too.
Yeah. So I mean, it started with a blowjob in a toilet. So yeah, I suppose it had to go on from there. Yeah, it never really got into court. It was just about the politics in the office and those friendships. So yeah, I did that, which did turn out to be a seminal piece of television again. I've been very lucky that way in terms of, doing stuff which really has an impact, I suppose, about every 10 years apart. So stuff like This Life, stuff like The Bill, which is a classic.
Of course.
The
classic black superintendent.
Well, actually, you say that. Well,
in the
you
UK,
say that.
historic.
You sort of say that. He was a top black cop, and I always correct people because actually we need to know our history.
Okay.
And
ready to be
what
schooled.
people do is they tend to, we're always reinventing the wheel. So I like to look back and go, actually, you know what? If you look back, there was a character called Walcott, which was played by an actor called George Harris. Fantastic, wonderful actor. You may have seen him in the Harry Potters and in Bond, James Bond, and various other things. And what's the one with the whip?
Conan the Barbarian?
No, not that. No, the whip and the hat and the Explorer. Spielberg.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana
Come
Jones.
on, yeah.
Various, all these sorts of. George is one of those wonderful actors who've done so much on stage, on film, and lest we forget our history, it's those guys who went before me who actually did this stuff. George played, he was the title character of a cop series.
Okay.
He was playing clothes, but he was a top cop. And, you got all these things, you got to look back at Norman Beaton and Rudolph and various others that came before, Thomas Baptiste, and they did wonderful work.
Set that foundation. They made it.
They
easier
set that
for
foundation.
professionals
It wasn't easy when I came
on.
in, but it was just carrying on a long line of slowly chipping away, and really doing all this wonderful
positioning more characters. Another one that was seminal work as well was obviously Cucumber. Cucumber was a classic piece of work.
Partly because it was about middle-aged gay men. I mean, when do you get that? I suppose in all, as with women, tend to disappear after a certain age, and then only come back as very old women. Gay life is generally only depicted by those who are beautiful.
Indeed.
The
young and the beautiful.
The young and the beautiful. And so what happens to all those old guys?
Yeah.
And
then they just get a grinder? Or?
Grinder wasn't invented when they were first around.
Kidding.
You know, and so
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it is that thing of, well, it is the seminal and wonderful, you know, Russell T Davies, who
Yeah.
on all sides, but you know, particularly with work concerning LGBTI QI, Russell has been, you know, with Queer as Folk and Boys,
Of course.
just
Yeah.
so many, you know, documenting our history.
Yeah.
You know, and it's looking at work like that, and you think, yeah, this is it was a fantastic.
That centered queerness in a way that television or
In a way
mainstream
that
hadn't
television,
done before.
yeah, and
Yeah.
as he did with Queer as Folk, you know, and yeah, he's done that. He's done that always. That's not to say that, you know, we don't want to forget people like Ricky Beadle Blair,
Of
who,
course,
you know,
yeah.
Noah's Ark, metrosexuality,
Yeah.
you know, so there are the people who have made these programs, and I suppose I've been lucky enough to be on the edges of some of those programs, you know, and not to get typecast.
Indeed.
To be able to move around from one sphere into another.
I remember also seeing Knots and Crosses, and you had a very different character
Yeah,
as well
yeah,
from what
yeah,
we're going to go into next in
yeah.
Bridgerton.
Yeah. Well, Noughts and Crosses, again, you know, a lawyer, and quite stern, and I do tend to get to play what I call a lot of blue suits. You know, I've been a lot of characters in law, you know, judges, policemen, constables.
You have that judicial
I don't
energy.
know. I don't know about that. Yeah. I like to think it's God having a joke. You know, so putting me on the right side of the law. So yeah,
At least on television.
on television. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Now I'm sure in real life too.
yeah, you know, yeah.
And-
my
yeah.
dabbles with the law have been very, very, very slight. Yeah.
Very, very slight.
Very
Okay.
slight,
But moving on to Bridgerton,
Yeah.
the highlight of this particular episode.
Okay, yeah.
Obviously with Queen Charlotte, it
Queen
broke
Charlotte, yeah.
many records. So I think the show was number one in several countries at the same time, and it hit it just smashed many Netflix records.
Yes, it
Did you
has.
expect it to be
has.
so big when you signed up to join the Bridgerton cast?
Let me put it this way: Shonda Rhimes,
Yeah.
you know, is again one of those characters, one of those showrunners, writers, who you can only hope as an actor to get to be part of that world, and you know, I've been very lucky in getting that, even with such a. I mean, the character that I played is actually there very briefly.
He was impactful.
but
It's
he was
hard to
very
forget who he
impactful.
is, especially given what he did.
Yeah, well, given
to
what
one
he
of the
did, given
main
his and
His narrative, you know,
you
centering
hope
an African.
Yeah, you
in
hope to
that
be.
period
You
piece.
hope to
It's-
be in whatever you're playing.
Mm.
You know, a really influential part of the narrative. What I call within the intellectual kernel of the piece. You know,
Mm.
within the emotional and intellectual kernel of the central family in whatever the piece is. You know, so you're
Mm.
actually making a great difference to the telling of that story.
The telling of that whole story arc, your influence,
Yeah.
your character's influence.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you know, those have always been the actors I've admired. You know, they seem sort of, I suppose, quiet. They are associated with whatever the program is, rather than being, you know, the star who is above the title.
Gotcha.
They fit in the same way as if you looked at let's look at the characters in The Wire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen The Wire.
You haven't seen
I've
The Wire?
heard
Oh
lots
my
of great things, so I still haven't seen The Wire.
I'm not sure I can have this conversation with a man who hasn't seen The Wire. I mean, what is going on? Where are your credentials? How are you here? But, no,
I know the
seriously.
podcast host.
Omar.
Yes.
Omar in The Wire. Probably the, well, Barack Obama said the greatest character.
Well, if you had been in The Wire, maybe I'd have seen it.
If I had been in The Wire,
yeah, exactly.
I would be,
why didn't they give you a role in The Wire?
Well, I wish I'd been in The Wire. I would have been jumping cock a hoop. But Omar, the character of Omar in The Wire was a black, gay, unashamedly gay, drug, Robin Hood type character who stole from other drug dealers.
Are there good sex scenes in The Wire?
They did, but he was a gay character who just was unashamed and was fantastic and just brilliant. And you look at that sort of character, you go, wow.
Okay.
Look at that, and the actor that played him sadly passed on now. But just brilliant and just got the essence of that character. And those are the sort of, I suppose they would in old times be called character actors or whatever. But you fit into the piece. You fit into the style of the piece. It's about knowing what the style is that you're in and fitting into that so that people come up and they go, oh, you were the guy who was, but they can't remember necessarily your name.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they know that they loved you in that because you fitted so well into the style of the piece. You told the story.
But it's hard to forget Lord Danbury's name.
It is very hard to
because
forget.
His character
it's hard to forget
so...
Lord Danbury's name, but you can forget my name because people come up and they go, Lord Danbury. And that's even, I suppose partly the voice. But once you've taken away all the makeup.
All the makeup. What was it like getting under the makeup chair, and how many hours did it take to get all that gig on?
Initially, it took 3.5 hours to get made up. And it was really it was a really interesting makeup. It was made up of so many bits. I think online there is a slow-mo capture of
I saw that,
of me getting made up. Which they then speed up into sort of half a minute or something.
And I see you patiently there, on the chair while they add these layers.
And that was 3.5 hours from beginning to end. So it's grueling because you are actually being put into it's like the man in the iron mask. Essentially, you're being put into a rubber mask, which comes on in bits, but essentially is a whole helmet. Once you put the hair on and all the rest of it. So you're sort of trapped.
I can
inside.
imagine.
And only on a couple of mornings did I have, I had some claustrophobia in there. When you get an itch and I was
going to say, you need to scratch your upper brow. It's okay.
You can't actually get to your own skin.
Yeah.
And you know that this is thousands of pounds worth of makeup, teeth, hair, whatever, that's going on. You can't rip it off halfway through, partly because people are waiting for you to get on set and you've been there since 4:30 in the morning because you have to arrive so much earlier than everybody else. So because it's a complex makeup. So the end result I loved.
It's convincing because not many people recognized you. They thought it was another
totally
actor
different.
completely.
Which is great. And I love the compliments about, oh my God, why did you make such a young, beautiful man into this ugly old character? Yes, more of those compliments, please. Yes, I know, absolutely gorgeous
the
man.
Contrast,
Anyhow.
But also the character himself, how would you say his character evolved over the season? So we've seen season 1, and without giving too much away, can you share a little bit more about how his character...
the thing is, when you've got such a small, he's essential, and I wanted him to be essential. He is also funny, even though a lot of the time, what he's dealing with, he takes out his emotions, he takes out his own trauma, which is a lifelong drip, drip, drip trauma on his wife, who's a lot younger.
Very clever though.
Yeah,
she knew what she wanted.
She's
very
extremely
strategic.
clever.
Yeah,
but then the whole point is that women in those times, and if you look right across the Bridgerton
even
world,
today, arguably,
and today, are in a position where you have to use a certain amount of guile and your innate intelligence to combat what is a misogynistic society.
The patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
I don't know if you saw Barbie, and it going on a
I
tangent.
haven't seen Barbie.
Okay, you should see Barbie.
I know that I am now, I talked to you about The Wire, but I know that,
Honestly,
it was used as a cultural reference the other day in
it
rehearsal.
is so
and
eye-opening. There's
I
so
thought,
much.
I have
the
to
layers.
see this.
I mean, you go in thinking it's Barbie. Like, you can't expect anything too deep, too serious.
Yeah.
But it touches on so many things that you just highlighted within, how women have to navigate society and the patriarchy and misogyny, etc., and misogynoir. So it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, I mean, you've got a character like that who is introduced to the world of Bridgerton on the job as such. He is, he's in the middle of the act.
Yeah.
Of sex, which is essentially non-consensual.
It is. It's basically him, forcing himself and his wife.
So, you've got all that, and yet you have to have a character who can be understood and laughed along with as well as at, which is a fine line to go along. But I think that, one of the joys of having had a long theatrical career is that you can touch on that. And as long as you keep truth in there, it doesn't really matter that, you're larger than life as such on screen. Because, there were points where during filming, not only with the makeup and the hair, and I suppose there was quite a lot of performance in his look, and so to get through all that and to make him a believable character who you could hate and also sympathize with.
Sympathize?
Yeah, I think so.
Sympathy for Lord
You don't think so, but actually, if you look to moments when he actually confides in her that he will never be treated in the way in which he feels he ought to be, they will always string me along at one point, and it's after sex, after non-consensual sex,
and the more truthful,
and it's the truthful man going, I am, because of my color, because of whatever else, I will never be treated in the way in which and that's fantastic in a popular drama like that to deal with that. So I think to hit all those things, the joy of having played a Polonius, who is a character who essentially is laughed at, but actually is the person who keeps the whole of that Danish society running. He is that civil servant who essentially does not want his kids to get involved with this privileged royal family who are totally, in modern terms, they're just a walking Traumaville. Please break out the psychiatrists. They all need help,
Indeed.
Marrying the uncle, killing the dad, all the rest of it, and essentially what he tries to do is he tries to keep, as a single dad, Polonius, you never meet his wife, he's a single dad bringing up these children, and he's trying to inculcate in his kids, this sense of honor, which in his speech to his son, you get all of that in there, and in trying to protect his daughter and keep her away from Hamlet, and and yet he is a laugh as well, and you can laugh at him. So when you've got all that and you take all those little bits of playing down the years, like with the Cassius figure from Julius Caesar, I worked out with the help of a doctor friend of mine that, Cassius essentially suffers from, a bipolar type, reaction to life. And and it's quite fascinating when you put in those things and you realize, wow, Shakespeare had covered all this way before Freud had ever thought of it or was born, or, Jung or any of those characters. And he's dealing with the human condition. And when you've got all that training, then you can hopefully bring that to a Lord Danbury character and make people both hate him. I remember somebody coming, it might have been you, and saying, when he said to her, as they got out of the carriage, I hated you, but you also had that thing of, did he just really say that, So it was one of those things where you got that, you can laugh at him, you can hate him.
Maybe some would have a degree of sympathy, but I love that juxtaposition of the classics there, the Paulinus, Hamlet, Julius Caesar, and those characters that were so multi-layered.
Yeah.
And then bringing it to television, where Shonda Rhimes has created the whole Bridgerton
world,
where we have these references. I mean, semi-historical, and you have these stories that are so rich. It gives it another layer that makes it a lot more accessible.
It's a when you look at it, it is mentioned that actually Danbury's family is the family. His father essentially propped up the king.
Yeah,
the previous
West
king.
African royal family.
Yeah, their riches. It was their money, their wealth.
It's giving me a bit of
their
Leopold
copper,
vibes.
Their copper, all that stuff, all the gold, all the whatever that propped up this, this family. And yet you never got any of the.
There's no reciprocation of that.
No, there's no
creation.
And so when you get all that, then you go, oh yeah, look at the wonderful depth behind this character and what drives him to then, it's that old thing of, the master kicked the servant kicked the dog bit the cat, So
Indeed.
and we take it out on each other. But when you look at it like that, it becomes really complex and it's wonderful, and it's a wonderful world to be in. I suppose before the Bridgerton days, I was hoping to spend some time, if possible, in one of Shonda's American series. That would be great.
I can see you in Grey's Anatomy.
You can see
A
me in
visiting
Grey's Anatomy.
surgeon from the UK.
Well, I can either be from the UK
or from any other parts of the world. Maybe a Nigerian,
Yeah.
actually a Nigerian doctor.
A Nigerian doctor would be really interesting now.
Because you have so many Nigerian medics in the...
Oh, in the US, loads.
Exactly, but how many characters are in, Shonda Rhimes?
Shonda,
Dr.
I
Nri.
already want, I won't give anything away, but, as Bridgerton is set, a number of years after
Yes.
Queen Charlotte, because Queen Charlotte is the prequel. I think, without the makeup, I could come back as one of my children. I keep saying this, Shonda.
That is so true.
You would have the family similarity,
So maybe we'll see you in the second season.
Just because Bridgerton 3 has just been done. So I think, there's scope there. There's scope.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. And what was it like, the final question I have for you, what was it like actually being within the ton and the world, the physical world that had been created for the studios and stuff? What was it like? Apart from getting into the makeup, and that was a little bit...
The thing is, the Bridgerton is... the whole Bridgerton world is now such a big thing. I don't know when Bridgerton first appeared. Obviously, it's a Shonda Rhimes, so therefore it's going to be big anyhow.
Yeah,
but it hit the ground running, and there have been lots of copies since.
Of course, even the Bridgerton balls in London, and you have Bridgerton themed. Everything.
But, there are loads of other programs now that ape that sort of world. And so it sort of does its own thing. it definitely keeps a lot of the stately homes of Britain in gainful employ.
Of course, because maintaining those
from Hampton
grounds,
Court to the bath pump rooms to
those can be expensive
Greenwich
spaces.
These are all huge spaces which are rented out by the Bridgerton world.
I'm sure the budget would cover the annual maintenance for that.
It's a huge budget, but let's not fool ourselves.
Yeah.
The SAG and writers' strike aside, Netflix are making their these are big series. These are some of their biggest series. I believe that Queen Charlotte broke the Bridgerton records. So yeah.
Actually, let's talk about numbers for a second.
I don't know the actual numbers.
What's in the public domain around numbers?
I don't know the numbers because I don't follow the numbers.
Yeah.
As I'm always telling you, I'm not on social networks, and I don't take care of the numbers. I have an agent for that sort of stuff.
You have an agent to manage that side of things.
And they look at those things, and I'm sure that, it's lovely. I'm too old for that. So.
I'll put that question to the audience. Do you think Cyril should be on social media? Please comment below, because Cyril doesn't even have like a Twitter, an Instagram, a TikTok. It's like, I mean...
let me just answer that. Whether you think I should be on there or not, I don't care what you think in terms of being on social media. That's the reason I'm not on social media. I don't want to know.
Just let me know and we'll create a Cyril fans account. Okay?
Don't tell him.
He doesn't have to know.
No, you don't tell him. Because, the thing is, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
The other day, I sent a photograph, which I happened to come across, of myself and Helen McCrory and Gary MacDonald and a few others in a production that was in 1991 at the National. And
before many of our audience were born.
The legendary Mona Hammond was in it playing my mom, and Helen McCrory, who some of you will know from Peaky Blinders or the Harry Potters, indeed, or any of those things. And I sent this photo on to another member of the cast who happened to be in the photo as well, and we all looked very young and beautiful, and I was very jealous of my earlier self and thought, why didn't I make more of that? But within a day, somebody came back to me, sending me the photo with the Instagram comment that actor that I'd sent it to had already put it on Instagram. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Look, you see, what was actually a sort of, it's not that, it's not that private, but it was a sort of private, oh, look at us all these years back. And then suddenly it's the whole world, all, within a day. And I sent a message to him saying, you people on social media, you just, it's like seconds later.
I'm finding that trade-off because obviously as an actor that's performing on stages, public stages, then, the audiences want to see a little bit of, a little bit more and see something that will give them a bit more context about the rich character you are, the individual, to an extent, and just, feel a bit more like, we know this guy. Even though they don't, but they want to feel like they can see and connect.
But then that doesn't allow you to move from character to character. Because what it becomes is it becomes about the actor rather than telling the story and playing the character. So it just becomes about, it's the stuff of action. I don't want to use any names, but there are certain actors who, when you knew less about them, we were more interested in the story rather than going, this is a vehicle, this is this person's vehicle, that person's vehicle. So it becomes less important what they're saying
Gotcha. So you have to be as black a canvas as an actor as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on here doing a podcast, so obviously there's a bit of me out there. You know, we're not
And thank you
pretending.
for coming
We're
to
not
the
pretending
show.
that
Yeah.
actors don't have egos. They do, but most of them are in need of help. Most of them are running from themselves, in some way or another, inhabiting other characters. I find out a lot more about myself through playing other people, and the way I approach that tells me much more about myself than just dealing with Cyril.
You mentioned that in the episode of Slate Stories that we did
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and I appreciate you coming out of your comfort zone to share more.
Yeah, it's not
and
a
give
comfort
the fans
zone.
a little bit more
It's
to understand
it's just
and appreciate you a bit more too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not running away from, if somebody said, would you swap with Denzel? I'd go, yeah, I think I could handle some of that. But even there, I mean, actually, essentially, he's here we go. We've lost power. Everything's gone off.
Is it still recording?
Yeah, it's still recording.
What?
It's still recording.
Oh, it's still
Is
recording.
it?
Okay, so we'll just do a quick wrap
Okay,
up.
so hang on. Well, it's not going on mic. It's all. It's totally off. All the power's gone.
All the power's gone.
Yeah.
It's still recording from the camera.
Okay, so
okay.
we'll do a quick.
Hello, we're still recording.
We're still
Don't worry
recording,
about it,
but we
I
have.
don't know.
DEPA has run out, so our gas meter bill has finished. So for this
never.
remaining
You see,
we'll
this
just
is a very Nigerian thing. You see,
pay
You
your
don't
bill,
actually
pay your
need
full
this
bill,
anymore.
so we don't get
If you had
control.
paid the bill, this boy, we would now
We
be
could
in
have talked
Hollywood.
for another 10 minutes.
We would have been in Hollywood doing
Hollywood.
some major thing. But here we are in East London and they haven't paid. You see?
All that's left for me to do is to thank you for coming through.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you sharing with us on the Real Happy Hour podcast. And until the next time, please like, subscribe, share. You'll be back to Ola for the next episode of the Real Happy Hour podcast. And Nzube Ufodike signing out with our fantastic host, Cyril Nri. Fantastic guest,
Thank you.
Cyril.
Host.
You can edit that bit. Yeah. Bye.